Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Untitled Reviews. This being a show where we talk about TV shows that are dramas. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of The Republic of Sarah. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. First and foremost, obviously because of the weather situation that's going on in Greylock, they're basically going to have to be dealing with flooding. Like, Adam was able to kind of let them know like ahead of time, but because of like the extreme blizzard they had recently, but also like the high temperatures, the ice is melting at such a rapid rate that like the nearby bodies of water can't compensate, so things are going to start flooding, and basically Greylock as a whole is going to get flooded. So obviously it's them coming together trying to find solutions around it and to basically deal with it, because Sarah tries to call the New Hampshire governor for help, but she can only, it's like, right, I'm dealing with stuff on my end. It's like, right, we may not always agree with each other, Sarah, but the fact is I'm not a total monster, so I'll send what I can, but it's very few people she can give, because like the thing is, Greylock doesn't have a FEMA or anything like a response. She like could try to call up the president, but she didn't actually have his number. No matter what she tries to do, like going through the proper channels, she can't actually get in contact with the president. Detriment of being your own country that's not recognized. Which you know, it's like, granted, she was able to deal with the governor, but the U.S. as a whole still kind of like that's an issue. So her needs to reach out. New Hampshire governor can't give too much support. So it's like, how do we like deal with this? And so ultimately, Sarah turns to her dad for help under these circumstances because he knows what to do. So he helps plot out what they have to do. That basically they're using sandbags and stuff like that to like make sure that the water's blocked off. They're moving people from out of risk areas into, safer, higher elevation. Every other place is trying to like, they're trying to like lead the water away is what they're doing. But because things started moving too rapidly, Paul made the decision to flood a place known as the Glen, and it pisses Sarah off because it's another aspect, because as she learned earlier in this episode, oh cool, my dad doesn't even know I'm allergic to cranberries. And even him being like, oh, when did that come about? It's like, oh, third grade. See, that's what happens when you miss your daughter's 18 years that you don't even know. Like, and I think, it speaks volume that had to be Danny, but Sarah's allergic. Like, I think it means a lot that even though Danny was like going out of Sarah's life for 6 years, it's not 18 years. You were out of your daughter's life 3 times as long as her brother was, but at least he was there to know enough about his sister, her likes and dislikes, what she's definitely allergic to, because that scene in itself was kind of awkward, because it's like, right, Danny and the whole Danny and Corinne thing, but also Sarah and Paul thing. So like that was just kind of like a complicated meeting at that moment, like, because Danny has been trying to avoid her like Sarah's asked him to, and it's hard because it's like, right, seeing her happy with Adam and everything, it's heart-wrenching, because it's like, right, he does love her. He's like, he knows what he did with Piper. It's hard, but it was the right thing to do. She's a great person that as long as he's in love with someone else, it would never be fair, because there's always going to be my part of my heart that I can never fully give to you, because I'm always going to be thinking, and my heart's always going to tug towards someone else. So that's what that comes down to. So but Sarah's pissed at Paul for flooding that place, and he's like, oh, why? It doesn't matter. And that's what pisses her off more, because that place, there was like a playhouse place that was there, which she's like, I grew up there. That place, she ended up putting on so many plays there. It got her to be able to be comfortable in her own skin, and she can get in front of a lot of people without getting nervous because of that place. She was able to get over a lot of her own fears because of that place. And just like her dad being the one, because for one, he doesn't know how important that place is to her. 2, it is kind of like, I guess ironic would be the word, that your dad would come in and destroy a place that has importance to you in your childhood because he wasn't there for you in your childhood. The ultimate poetic / tragic irony behind that is like, the complicated thing behind it. But even then, later on, Corinne's, I forgot what she was doing, but she went to the schoolhouse to get something, and I was scared because obviously she got knocked out, but that water was flooding fast. Like half her face was already underwater. I was like, if that kept up, she would have drowned. And someone shows up. I was like, oh, of course it's going to be Danny, because of course he followed her. And good thing he did, because he saved her. He says like, oh, I was just driving by. It's like, I think he was checking in on it. I think he's probably in the general area, or maybe I feel like it's too happenstance that you got there. But maybe it is a thing of like, right, let me go check on seeing Corinne if she needs any help. And then he sees that, he's like, oh crap, and he goes and saves her. But it's like, right, they compensated everything by flooding the Glen. So what's happening? All the calculations are right. It's like, unless there's getting a lot more water, so where's that extra water coming from? It's coming from the dam, because Canada is doing the same thing to a certain extent, where they made their sacrificial place be the Glen, where they flooded it to stop the water from like taking over the entire town. Canada did the same thing, because there's a reservoir of water behind the dam, and if it flooded, it would have flooded a ton of businesses. So Greylock ended up being a sacrifice. It's like, it's the sad thing of being like, who cares? That's not a recognizable thing. So it's like Canada won't get too much in trouble for it, because it's like I guess it's almost like an unrecognized point of land. It's like, yeah, there are people living there, which is like, right, we got to get these people out of here. But Sarah starts thinking like, well, what if we dig a trench to kind of divert it and just make it flood the Glen even more? But the dude who runs like the equipment that's going to be digging up the coltan doesn't want to help, which I'm like, it would benefit you, but it's like, I guess it's like the areas of Greylock that are going to get flooded won't affect what they've got to do. It's like, oh, you told people to get out of town. I'm going to do that. I'm going to take your advice. But even then, it's like, right, like it would go a long way. It's like PR move wise, this will make it look like, hey, Leiden's here to help. But for him, it's like, no, if we do something wrong and things still kind of mess up, it'll fall back on us. Self-preservation type of situation. But it is kind of like, it would help. You know, you are supposed to be kind of like Leiden and everything are supposed to be neighbors in all of this, but he's like, yeah, let's get out of here. But then I love Danny's solution to it. It's like, nah, we do need the equipment, so we're just going to steal it. And then Sarah being so excited, like, oh, we're going to break the law. And I love like the mask situation. Everyone's got their masks on, and then it gets to Grover, and Sarah's like, what the hell are you wearing? What the hell is that, Grover? And he's like, blah, blah, blah. And Weston's like, what's that? And then it has to be Danny to be like, it's for Magic the Gathering. I was like, you nerd! I love it. And there's like this smugness from, I love the smugness that's kind of from Grover, kind of like, yeah. And I love it. And it's like, AJ coming down with the clown mask is like, whoa. We need to leave that. Like, minus mask. He's like, what? And we got Jason Voorhees over here. And Paul's like, I thought it was Michael Myers. It's like, no, Michael Myers is the one with the mask. It's like a white mask. And he's like, this is a white mask. It's like, then who's the one with the, the messed up face is like Leatherface. It's like, no, Freddy Krueger. Leatherface is the one from Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which is like, oh, Weston knows his horrors. Because I was going to say, you're fumbling all this horror stuff. I love it. It's so good. I'm not even the biggest horror fan, but I'm like, oh, like, because I'm not well versed in horror, but I know that enough. I'm like, oh, that seems like basic knowledge to be getting wrong. Confusing Michael Myers with Jason Voorhees, yes, there's parallels, but still, and confusing him with like Freddy Krueger or Leatherface. I mean, those three in particular, but come on, Freddy stands out amongst Jason, Michael Myers, and Leatherface. I mean, come on, Leatherface literally has a face made out of other people's skin, so that differentiates him. God, Jason's got a hockey mask, and there's a difference between a hockey mask and just a straight up like mask that Michael Myers wears. So I'm like, it just seemed like that's such a basic thing to, like, that's just so integrated into pop culture. How can you just not know? But you know, like, I might not have seen all the movies. I'm not well versed in the canon of those movies, but I've seen enough growing up that, you know, maybe I'm a little above average when it comes to the pop cultural reference of who those horror icons are. Horror icons, because I constantly say horror like I'm saying horror, but regardless, maybe that's my southern drawl kind of kicking in. Regardless, I just love it. And you're like, okay, let's perform this heist. Danny's like, it's not a heist. We're just concerned citizens using this equipment. It's like, yeah, make all the excuses you can. And like, I love this. All right, we're going to do this. We're going to be careful. No one's going to be the wiser basically when we steal this equipment. And it's like, they couldn't get through the chain on the gate. So like Grover just drove through it. I was like, okay, no, making it seem like none of this happened. So I love that. But luckily they were able to make it happen. And all of them came together and it was this big accomplishment of like, yeah, we saved the town. But Weston and obviously Paul have like their moment where, like, you know, obviously for Paul, it's like it's a lot easier when she was younger. Now it's like he's missed out on so much life to kind of catch up on, which Weston still says, like, you know, regardless of it all, it is like you are here, you are helping. It's like Sarah is worth fighting for, you know, so. But I think like, it was interesting because like Sarah had called him out earlier because for her it's like, because he was like, what do you want from me? He's like, what do you want me to do? He's like, I don't know anything about you because you won't let me, you won't talk to me to know anything. And what am I supposed to do? Like find a test on like online or something to kind of know, like, is there some trivia thing I'm supposed to take online to know all this stuff about you? But for Sarah, it's like, the thing I want to know is I want a father who knows how important the Playhouse was for me without me having to explain it or tell him, you know? So that's kind of the, you know, sad thing about it. But she's like, right, you might not have been there in the past, but at the very least you are here in my presence. So I am going to open up and give you an opportunity, because she's kind of letting her guard down little by little. It's, you know, once again, 2 steps forward, 1 step back type of situation. So that kind of works out. Things are about to get complicated going forward because, you know, earlier Weston was talking to Maya about his white whale, and that's obviously Paul, because he doesn't know that Paul is the Capiro that he's looking into, because it's like, right, that person leaked all this information, but he feels like there's definitely got to be more to the story as well. Like, what else other information is he sitting on that he hasn't really leaked yet? So I was wondering, like, if he had already figured that out, but he hadn't. And this episode shows him figuring it out, and he's like, right. So now he knows who Paul is. That's going to complicate things, because before, you know, it wasn't the whole thing of like, you know, all like, was it 2 episodes ago with the whole situation of being worried about, hey, Weston just using Sarah as a story, but it's like, no, he legitimately cares about her. He wasn't using her as a story, but now it's a complicated thing of like, right, your girlfriend's father is your story. He's your white whale, the thing that you've been chasing down so much, a big story that could be important to not just on your career, but also like, it's mainly just about the truth as a journalist of like, a journalist needs to kind of spread the truth, and what that story needs to be told. That's what it comes down to. Like, Weston does have his integrity, so it isn't just about his job, but doing this could destroy his relationship with Sarah, especially because Sarah's, you know, slowly fixing her relationship with her father. Rather, they're building one, because he makes a dinner of it, or rather it was just kind of like a movie night of watching the plays that she performed, you know. So we'll see, because it's going to be like, right, if you report on my dad, he's going to be exposed and he's going to have to go to jail. But Weston's torn between like, right, that truth needs to come out, but also this could affect my girlfriend. So being torn between those two is going to be a complicated thing. Another avenue to this, and it's a theme in this episode, is dealing with other people around you being happy. So, well, first and foremost, you have the whole Bella and Tyler thing, because they're about to do their thing. That was about to happen before, but it was like an awkward situation, and now they're putting so much pressure on themselves that it's not happening. But when they stop worrying about it so much, it did happen. And so like Maya and Bella are talking about, it's like, yeah, it kind of hurt the first time, but then the second time, then the third and fourth time, and Maya's like, the fourth time, it's like, yo, wow, you guys went at it like rabbits, huh? To be young and in love, right? Nevertheless, so there's that. There's, you know, Danny having to deal with, oh man, look at Corinne, the woman I'm in love with. Oh, and her husband Adam. Oh man, yeah, that night we spent together is a mistake, but it's still like, it brought a lot of those feelings even further to the surface than they already were. But even Grover's dealing with the fact is of like, he had talked to his therapist about how everything that was a part of who he was, that he identified as, you know, a husband, a best friend, a caretaker, because he took care of patients, you know, a protector. Like, a lot of that ended up disappearing when she passed away. And it's like, who am I without all of that? Like, I am nothing. He can't find like anything that he's happy about. So that ends up coming back, you know, because, you know, Grover, when him and Danny are beside each other, is like, yeah, Grover understands that more so than anybody, like being surrounded by all these people who are happy. Even his sister's over there in a relationship with Weston, which I'm sure on some level, I'm not sure whether Grover like has issues with that or not on some level, but you know, Grover's like, look at what we were able to accomplish. That should make you happy of like what we were able to do. Which Danny then talks to Keith later on and is like, yo, dude, I can't believe the town broke in. And he's like, yeah, I want to find out who did this. I'm gonna bring the hammer down on him. Danny's like, yeah, sure. He's like, because Keith's like, I can't wait to get out of this town. Danny's like, me neither, you and me both. And I'm like, is he saying that facetiously, or it's like, no, he legitimately has to leave this town, because it's like, it's yeah, him and his dad and his sister are in a better place, but it's like Corinne, there's just too much here. Like, even though a lot of stuff got repaired, being around that person you can never be with, it's just more pain. Because even Sarah's like, don't worry, Danny, like, you'll get over Corinne. It might take some time, but it will. It's just like, yeah, it just sadly didn't happen fast enough, which we'll get to in a second. But let's focus on all the other stuff first and foremost. You have Grover deciding, like, he's like, right, I'm a caretaker, like, I'm able to keep cool, calm, and collected under moments of crisis, which the therapist is like, yeah, let's not make it so that you can be let's find a way for you to be a caretaker without it being a moment of crisis, which he does, and that's keeping the dog that they found, which I'm like, hey, found something else he's good at, because he's there, taking care of the people around him. I thought at first he was going to suggest, like, I was like, volunteering to be like a caretaker when it comes to like AJ's dad. Like, I think maybe that fills a role in that as well, because like AJ was like, oh, can you check on my dad? He's like, sure. And obviously, but she appreciated him looking out, because I was like, yeah, the nurses had already moved him and everything. But I'm curious to see if that ends up being something like he takes a bigger role in that, like, looking after her dad, like, because he makes a point to come there with her, because currently Grover's still the only one, because AJ just hasn't told Corinne nor Sarah. Whether that'll come up soon or not, we'll see. So there's that avenue of things. But other than that, there is also, I think it's so interesting. Liz is in like Japan at the time or something, like on vacation. I'm like, oh, all that smack talking you do, Liz, and when Greylock's in a real severe situation, where you at? Where you at? Where you at, Liz? Come on, Liz. But all right, we're not as pissy towards, at least I'm not as pissy towards Liz as you. I'm like, all right, we've softened, or I personally softened my aggression to you, because you're not as terrible of a person as you were. You're still kind of a sucky person, but I'm kind of giving you a little bit more leeway. But I think it's funny, like all the smack talking she's done, and just kind of like, oh, she's dissing the blah blah blah, and it's like, oh, you're not here when Greylock really needs you, and they informed her, but it's gonna be, oh, you're gonna get back from your vacation. It's gonna like, oh, they were able to handle things without you, regardless. Then we get into the real gut punch of the episode when Danny came to visit Corinne, and it's like, right, I gotta leave, and she's like, but what about your life here? For him, it's like, yeah, but I'm still in love with you, and it's like, I'm not trying to ruin things. You deserve to be happy, but it's hard for me to look at you. And it's like, the moment they start talking about the blizzard, I was like, oh, Adam's gonna be like walking in just then or something. It's like, because he's supposed to be going. I didn't expect him to be in the closet. I was like, oh man, I love how that came back full circle. The whole situation of like, oh yeah, them scaring the crap out of him and Corinne earlier in the episode, at the beginning of the episode. I wasn't expecting that to come to full circle like that. He was like, yeah, I was waiting to get you guys back so I didn't actually go out for champagne and stuff. Like, I was like, oh, I knew he was going to come across that information. It was only a matter of time. Like, there was no way that was, because the guilt was already eating Corinne up, and it's like her and Danny would have had to severely avoid each other for the rest of their lives, especially like however long they stayed in town. So now Corinne's marriage is falling up, going to like, this is it. Like, obviously we had it with William, and because that's going to be the complicated thing, because AJ's probably going to have her perspective on it, because it's like yeah, Corinne did this, and yeah, that's her best friend. Obviously Grover called her out about what she did, but AJ's probably going to be a little more sympathetic in certain regards, because like, right, I kind of ended a marriage, so like I totally get it. But the complicated thing is, it's like, it's not really no love loss for William. It's more so like, right, the effect it had on Bella. But now it's like, this is your best friend involved, so you're going to throw a little shade towards to Danny. But then also like Sarah's like, I told you should have never done this. So she's not going to be pissed at Corinne. She's going to be pissed at Danny for handling things the way he did. And the thing is, he was trying to do the right thing of like, oh, I'm going to leave because it's not fair, right or fair to me or you. Like, your happiness, I am happy for you, but I do love you. And it's just like, oh, it's just, that sucks. Because also it got brought up again of like, oh, Adam, it's like, yeah, she's like, now that I know Adam is Josh's dad, like, it makes me put my head on a little straighter. I'm like, I'm still like, that look on Sarah's face almost made me still go, is she lying? I'm like, I don't think so. Like I said, because of last episode, smiling behind her back like that made me think, no, she's not lying, that it's truthful that Danny's not the father, that it is Adam. But that's still going to complicate things, because it's like, even if it opens up the opportunity, oh, we can be together, it's like still the thing of like, Danny's like tight with Adam. Like, we haven't really seen them hang out as much anymore now that it was like all out. But it's like, it's like, he's a really good dude, so he feels bad doing that, like blowing up their lives, especially Corinne's. It's like, he just wanted to give her a goodbye, because it's like, I left without saying goodbye 6 years ago. Biggest regret of my life. I owed you after everything to give you a proper goodbye. And it's just like, he was legitimately trying to do the right thing. Like, but you could also make the argument it was still selfish of him, because it's like, you shouldn't have said anything just because you should have just done what your sister asked. But it's like, right, you could have I don't know. Like there was just no easy solution to this. It was just a sad turn of events, I think. Yes, people made mistakes, but it's like, will Corinne and Adam be able to recover from this? I don't know. There's no like, oh, now Danny and Corinne can be together. It's like, no, that's going to be solely because I'm sure on some level Corinne's going to blame herself, but also blame Danny. And I'm curious, like, the aftermath of what happened with Danny 6 years ago, like what that did to Corinne, like she could definitely end up falling back into that now, and that could fall on, and that once again, I think Danny's going to get the brunt of it. It's like, you screwed up Corinne's life 6 years ago, you had to come back and screw it up again. And it's like, maybe it's best you do leave Greylock. So I think that's just the sad situation of it all. So it's going to be definitely be really interesting to ultimately see like how this all plays out, how the fallout of all of this. Because it's also like the argument could be like, well, here you go. Like your dad bailed on you and your sister for most of your lives. And it's like, right, he's come back to kind of screw things up a little. He screwed things up a tiny bit, at least from Sarah's perspective. And it's like, yeah, like Danny kind of like, it's almost like father, like son in certain regards. It's not a 1-for-1, but it's like the kind of collateral damage that they've kind of caused in their own rights is kind of, it's happening it's happening like I said, father like son. So it's going to be so interesting to see where the next episode takes us with all of this. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.